back, everyone, to a Flourishing Start podcast. In this episode, we will explore what the experience of being a new parent is like, the role that fathers can play in their baby's healthy development and social emotional well-being, and where they can go to find community and support. Welcome, everyone. I first want to introduce to y'all Perry. Perry is a new dad. His beloved son Jordan is almost 9 months old. At home, he is navigating the both challenges and joys of parenting an infant. At work, he serves as a family engagement liaison for Oakland Unified School District, working to increase enrollment at schools in deep East Oakland. Thank you, Perry, for joining us today to share your parenting experience and how you've chosen to approach fatherhood.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be on.
Awesome. And up next, we have Jorge. For the last 4 years, Jorge has led the Project Fatherhood program at Pacific Clinics in Pasadena, California. In this role, he leads weekly discussion-based support groups on a range of topics, including child development, with the goal of helping fathers become more actively involved in their children's lives. Jorge is a father of 2 daughters. The oldest is 14 years old, and the younger one is 13 years of age. In the past 25 years of his work in the field of mental health, Jorge has focused on programs that seek to empower and improve the lives of children, youth, and their families. Jorge's work has allowed him to engage the community by ensuring parents play an active role in advocating for their own needs and the needs of their children. Thank you, Jorge, for joining us today to be in conversation with us and share your expertise.
Thank you for having me with you guys this morning. Appreciate it.
Of course. I'm really excited to get a conversation going today. And we'll just go ahead and get started here, Perry. Would you start by telling me a bit about your son and what it feels like to be a new dad?
My son Jordan is almost 9 months old, as you just described. He's so full of life. He's always laughing. And he's so curious. It's kind of I'm really excited for as he gets older and is able to communicate more, like the things that he's interested in and loves. I was saying to Jorge before we got started that I knew that I would love being a dad, but I didn't realize how much I would love being Jordan's dad. And I know that's somewhat kind of a cliche, but it's so true. Every day is a new adventure. As you can see, I'm in the car currently. That's because we had a late night teething. And so, every day is new, but being there to support Jordan as he grows is definitely like one of the joys in my life.
I think you being in the car kind of just shows too, like you have to navigate around Jordan's world and you're there to be his support. And I think that's really beautiful how you described being his father. And as we mentioned, this is your first son. And so you're entering a journey of parenthood. And it's really nice to see you flourish into this role, Perry. Jorge, would it be good if we could speak a little bit about your role? And so you worked with many fathers in your experience. What are the most common challenges and questions that are coming up for dads in the first year of a child's life?
I think I feel that for a lot of the fathers, the challenge, a lot of the challenge is that they, it's not to strive to be the perfect father. I think the fathers need to feel that they are, that they are good enough. Fathers need to figure out strategies, I think, that make them feel good enough, and that because from 0 to 5, there is a lot happening developmentally for a lot of fathers to deal with. I have seen this question of am I good enough come out in a variety of reasons. I think sometimes because of the lack of knowledge, the lack of skills, stereotypes, and sometimes too many uncertainties. But there is no such a thing as a perfect father. Not everything. I think when my fathers in my group understand that not everything in their lives needs to move at the same pace and parallel to each other, I think that creates a sense of, for them to feel comfortable with themselves. Um, it is important, I think, for fathers to to form realistic expectations. Being a father, I think, is the most rewarding thing most men are gonna do in their life. But also at the same time, being a father is the most exhausting thing you're gonna do in your life. And so I think it is important for fathers to feel comfortable, to be aware that in father and child relationships, we are going to make mistakes. There are going to be there's going to be a lot of unknowns. And, Perry doing this podcast from his car, I don't think he was expecting to do this. So, but there's a lot of unknowns that happens, and also there's a lot of struggles that come with being a father. I see a lot of fathers struggle also with being consistent. For example, I think consistency might just be one of the biggest challenges in upbringing. But some of the fathers in my group struggle to be consistent with their own approach from day to day. And this can cause children to have behavioral issues a lot of the times. It can create conflicts between couples because consistency is not happening at home. So it is important, I think, to create a structure in the home that it can be predictable, can be a little bit predictable, and it can be easy for everybody to follow, so that can in itself minimize stress.
Perry, what are your thoughts on what Jorge just said on it being the most rewarding, but also the most exhausting thing that a father might go through?
I definitely can identify with that. I'm somewhat of an older father, not quite. I'll be 39 in August. And so I definitely understand that. I often feel like physically and sometimes mentally fatigued, but Jordan in many ways is like my life source and is like a battery for me. And so like while I may be tired, I get a second wind like when he walks through the door. And so yeah. I don't know. It's required me to dig deep in ways that I feel like I haven't had to in since my early 20s. To just kind of look inward and for more, so that I can be there to support him and to support my partner. I think one of the things that Jorge just mentioned was just like the importance of consistency and building routines. I think that's definitely incredibly difficult for new families, but it is so important for your children to have that routine and that consistency.
It's interesting because it's in their first year of life, there's going to be so many unknowns, expectations, like teething's going to come around, sleep regression's going to come around. Jorge, I wanted to see if you were be able to share what's an important thing that a dad can do to promote healthy development during their first year.
Yeah, building an attachment or a bond with your child, I think in the first year is especially important. I think attachment is the first way that babies learn to organize their feelings and their actions. So it's important for us to recognize that as fathers. I think as fathers, to be involved in your child's daily routine, I think to start. I think children thrive in a well-ordered and predictable environment where daily routines such as bedtimes, meal times, nap times, helping them get dressed, putting them to sleep, it can be helpful and necessary to promote a healthy development. I think reading, it's something that I think I encourage him with the fathers in my group. For them to do with their children. I think not only does reading help their children learn their native language or other languages, but it also develops their speech, and with more words they hear. And then also children. If you read to children, I know this is something my wife did a lot. It benefits to build emotional connections with the person that they're reading, that the person that is reading to them and is holding them. So I think that's very important. Playing, I think, with silly toys, preferably. I think it's important. Playing with silly toys have a special key in the children's development. It obviously helps them intellectually. It helps them with their motor skills,
Mm.
and also emotionally, and with and with the linguistic skills. The strategy here is that we want happy babies to become. So the more you play with them, I think the more self-confident and more creative, and the more satisfied they feel. I think that it is important that we start to play with our children as soon as possible, as men, and no way until they're able to kick a ball or throw a football. Our therapist in my department, we have a room full of toys. And this is and the reason why I'm saying this is because these therapists, what they do is they utilize the power of playing with these particular toys in order to help these children some children cope with different situations. I think another thing that we can do as fathers is participating in medical appointments. This is something that I encourage a lot for my men. I think being a proactive father usually leads, I think, to a happier and healthier baby. If you are aware of the changes in the health of your child and can address concerns of medications and treatments more confidently on behalf of your child, I think that's a good way to advocate for him. Also understanding how to, not only we helping our children, but fathers also understand how to navigate new systems. I think important that they have never navigated before when they didn't have a child before. And develop new relationships with the doctor. I think it's important just to make him aware of the changes of the health of your child. And lastly, I want to say that if parents don't communicate though openly and effectively, chances are that the children won't either. So fathers need to be able to be to be good partners. Fathers need to be good partners with the mothers of the children. I think effective communication skills not only will benefit the children for their entire lives, but you can, but you want to be on the same page with the needs and the wants and the developmental concerns of their children. And this is especially important. This doesn't apply if if you're in a relationship with your partner, or if you're a single father. I think having this relationship can definitely promote a healthy development, especially in the first year.
I think a few things that resonated with me, although I'm not a father too, is like this idea that you were talking about playing with your child as a dad even before they can play with a soccer ball or a football. I feel like that's the type of play I see most of the times, but I wonder if Perry, are there any examples that you play with your son or that come to mind, even if it's with toys?
Yeah. Well, it's hilarious. I feel like most babies that are less than a year old love ordinary objects. So Jordan loves tags. He loves plastic bags, like all of the things that he probably shouldn't be playing with, right? He's trying to grab the remote. So I actually got him a teether that's like a remote that looks like the real remote, but he's always going to grab the actual remote. But my mom and I joke that I'm his personal jungle gym, right? Like one of Jordan's favorite things to do is to just crawl all over me, right? And so like I'll, lay with him or be on the floor next to him and like move my arms or legs, make it a little more difficult for him to climb over me and that sort of thing. So, yeah, like ordinary household objects bring infants so much joy, right? So even if you don't have toys or you aren't somewhere where there are a ton of toys or where they can spread out, there are definitely ways to engage and play outside of that.
And we all learned that, when I was a father. I think the most popular toy when my oldest daughter was born was Tickle Me Elmo. And my wife made me stand on line. It was one of the most popular things in Christmas. So I come home all happy. My little one is going to play with Tickle Me Elmo. And what did she decide to do? She decided to play with the package, with the carton box that Tickle Me Elmo came in, and she totally ignored Tickle Me Elmo. So that's how I started realizing that playing it can be kids and like to play, and no matter with what object necessarily.
Stacking
That's pretty
cups.
funny.
I
Yeah.
had no idea how popular stacking cups would be with an infant, but my son loves the stacking cups.
What's that, Perry?
They're just cups that stack on top of each other, and babies love them. And yeah, it's like one of his favorite things is the stacking cups.
Interesting. I'm learning a lot, but at the same time, I think I'm
One
having
of
a
the
lot
things
of
that
joy hearing
Jorge
y'all.
said that I kind of want to
Hmm.
go back to is just like having open lines of
Yeah.
communication with your partner. I'm going to be just very vulnerable and transparent in this moment. Is it pre-parenting? My partner and I were seeing separate therapists, but we actually have started couples therapy recently, and it is like transformed the way that we engage with one another. I think that one of the things that's underreported for communities in color is that people deal with postpartum, and it's a spectrum that both men and women can experience, and that has an impact on your relationship. And so I think it's very important for people. I definitely think folks that come from backgrounds and communities that are marginalized or vulnerable, to see it, like you need a therapist, right? Or see a therapist, see somebody, do something, individually, and if you need to as a couple, doing that as well. I think that's incredibly important.
Perry, on that note, who do you look to for community and support, whether that's emotional support, childcare, or anything along those lines?
Uh, my in-laws are incredibly valuable as it relates to childcare. Just flat out, like this would not be possible. I would not be able to be on this without juggling Jordan if it weren't for my mother-in-law. So I'm incredibly grateful for her. Um, my own mom has been just an incredible sounding board. I'm really lucky that she's actually an early childhood educator by trade. So any like questions that I may have, like I can go to her for that and the technical expertise, but really just for her to kind of be a witness to what it's like to being a parent. And I think one of the greatest joys that she's experiencing as a grandparent is watching me raise Jordan. And so there's that. And then my very best friend is a dad of 4. He has 1 biological child and 3 bonus kids. And I call him Super Dad. He's such an incredible papa. And it's been just invaluable and telling me to like, don't be so hard on yourself. Like you'll never figure it all out. It's not going to be perfect. It's not easy. And so, yeah, like I think there's a whole community of that. Our son's godparents are incredibly valuable, and just being there for us and spending time with us. Yeah, the village is vast and wide, and I'm incredibly grateful for all of them.
It's beautiful. I'm very happy that you have that support. I wanted to open this question up to both Jorge and Perry. Are there any types of resources or information that you don't currently receive or that your participants currently don't receive that you think would be helpful to their family?
I think generally, and I want to go back to something else that Jorge said, is that I don't think that dads are like kind of encouraged or motivated. I don't want to say motivated. I want to say encouraged. I don't think that our medical system makes it easy for dads to participate. I want to be really clear that like I've been to every doctor's appointment except one when I had COVID, but I was there via FaceTime. And I think I missed one OB appointment that my partner had. But I'll say this is there's a large healthcare organization where we live. That quite frankly, when my partner was pregnant, wasn't very encouraging for me as a male partner to be there. And so I think that our medical system needs to catch up in that regard to make it more open and welcoming to fathers. We actually left that healthcare provider for some other issues, but one of the issues that was really important to me was just like how I was treated and perceived. And so that's something that I feel like I see is that there's not necessarily a lot of the content around child development around developmental stages, around health and well-being for babies is just geared to moms, quite frankly, right? And so I think that there is a need for there to be messages that are culturally and socially relevant to people who aren't just moms.
I do want to praise Barry, I think, for being so resourceful, because he's above average, for most of the fathers that I deal with. I think most of the fathers, whenever we talk about resources, or they need something, they most likely will isolate themselves, because we're men, we're strong, right? And so we don't end up seeking help. But I think building a network is a long process. It is. I think for men, it doesn't necessarily take weeks. I think, in the contrary, for a lot of my fathers, we get overwhelmed with when people start throwing some of this stuff, and like Perry said, some of these stuff are not even applicable to us in terms of the services for men. But I think this support network and process, it takes sometimes months and years, to develop. So we, as men, I think we also need to be patient. When also, let me break it down, I think, because there are multiple, the way I see it in terms of fathers accessing resources. I think, in building a support network, I think I see it in three different levels. I think, obviously, I think that at a broader level, obviously, we have governmental compiled resources like clearinghouses, resources that these are online resources, often that professionals and policymakers and researchers and people, and frankly, people in general in the community can access, because or whoever is committed to improving the outcomes of children and families in general. So that's one level. We also have another level. I think that most men sometimes are not aware of some of these resources. Obviously, we do have local organizations, I think, that try to support various communities. So in those, we could find mental health organizations like Pacific Clinic. We sometimes, we have libraries, we have schools, we have churches, we have police stations. So believe it or not, we have support groups, and then we also have one-on-one coaching opportunities available in the communities. We also, and then I think at a fundamental level, what Perry was saying is we also have resources that are important to us as individuals. We have our parents, we have our grandparents, we have our neighbors, former teachers, your religious and a spiritual leader can be that source. So they all play, and I think all these people play an important role, I think, in terms of you finding your own village and your own community.
Thank you for sharing that, Jorge. I think one thing that recalls from my memory too in our conversation, Jorge, is that it's important for fathers to create or choose the roles that they want to pursue or see themselves in. So like fathers tend to see themselves as protectors and providers, but we can also encourage them to see themselves as caregivers, as emotional figures for their children. And the three levels that you explained to me show the different avenues that a father can go to help support the role that they want to see themselves in. And I just wanted to highlight that because I do think it's important that we see fathers as caregivers too, because they deserve that joy and that bond with their child too.
I was going to say, I think that the most important part of my role as Jordan's father is to be nurturing and gentle with him, right? And to and also just to in many ways demonstrate vulnerability, that it's like okay for him to cry, right? It's okay for him to have big feelings. I say that to him all the time, right? Even though he may not comprehend that, like, you may be really upset right now, and it's okay to have those big feelings. Like, we're here for you regardless. And so That is so important.
Beautiful. I think because if our fathers are all, because fathers are learning that too. I think currently in our world that it is okay for them to express their emotions that aren't traditional. Okay, like you can cry as a father, as a boy, as a male. Like that's totally normal to have all those feelings, and at the same time, if you need extra support, that should be normalized too. I know this podcast focuses on children 0 to 5 years old, but fathers never stop being fathers, even after their child turns 5, 6, 10, 18. And just, I wanted to highlight that my family went through a traumatic experience, and although it would be normal to see a parent cry in this situation, my father lost his son, and I remember that he wore shades during the funeral services, black shades. And I looked at him and I'm like, why do you have those shades on? Like, it's okay for you to cry and share with the world, everyone here, that there's tears coming out of your eyes. Like, let's take the shades off and let everyone know that you lost your son and it's okay for you to cry. And at the same time, as the years went by, I think my father was extremely hesitant to get support on the governmental level, community level, and even struggled with the interpersonal relationships that he could get help in. So I think normalizing that fathers can be providers, they can be protectors, and you can be vulnerable at the same time. All of these can exist in the same world.
I think for most of my, we obviously I do support groups, and I don't necessarily, whenever before pre-COVID, we used to do in-person sessions, and some of the fathers will cry, and now the first thing that they will do is look for the Kleenex box. But I intentionally didn't have any Kleenex box, and
Oh.
so that would allow them to actually release their emotions. But it is important to understand that for many other fathers, this can only happen, I think, when we are given the opportunity to reflect that a father is not only, these spectral roles or these 50-50 equity, or, or if we have the right knowledge and skills. I think being a father is talking about empathy, it's talking about emotion, it's talking about self-care, it's talking about self-development, it's talking about family, fatherhood, our own childhood, our cultures, our manhood, our values, our beliefs, our communities, and so much more than that. That happens, that can only happen when we realize and we have some time to reflect and be comfortable.
All right, at this point in the podcast, I'm gonna open it up for Perry to ask Jorge questions, or Jorge for you to ask Perry questions. Take a few seconds if y'all want to think about anything, but no pressure if nothing comes to mind.
I could go first.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, and this is whenever I meet fathers, and this is my own professional curiosity. Is, as a new father, how do you take care of your mental health as a father and as a man?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, like prior to even having a child, I see a therapist. That's one of the things that I do. The other thing that I do, truly and deeply, is that I spend time with loved ones away from my partner and son, right? I've been really fortunate that the village is strong and steps in for me when I need some time away. Like, for example, I was away last weekend. I'm going to be away this weekend. And I'm really grateful for our village for being able to step up for me to do things that rejuvenate for me. But I definitely single-handedly, one of the most important things that I think, particularly anybody, I'm just going to name this, like as a Black person in America, right? Like, get a therapist if you don't have one. Like, there's just like the nature of our society and the way things are structured, especially as a parent, I think that's one of the most important things that I do for my mental health, is to see a therapist. Jorge, I was going to ask you, what's one thing that you wish someone would have told you as your child were in these early stages?
I think it's to listen more than to talk, and to observe what's going on, because I feel that if we pay attention on what's going on, if we take some time get rid of distractions and actually decide to connect with our kids, I think the value to that, I think, is to try to figure out their needs. I think that's important. And because as a father, I think, as a professional father, my wife works also too. We don't, our time is very limited, And so for me at the beginning, I had to question between quality and quantity. I was very trying to figure it out so I can be that, good enough as a father. And I think finding out that, I don't have the time, and I'm going to concentrate on the quality part of it. And part of the quality part of it is to be present, to enjoy the moment, to figure out the needs of my children so they can be satisfied. Obviously, when they're younger, it's a lot easier, right? The reasons why they cry, there's just so many reasons why they cry. If they're uncomfortable with their pamper, they're feeling sick, they're cold, and so it's a little bit easier. But as they get older, I think understanding that, it carried me through having a healthy relationship with them, because I was always focusing on figuring out what their needs are, and allowing me. It was chaotic whenever there were transitions from one milestone to another, and that's natural. But I think understanding that as a father is one thing that I would say to the other fathers: understand the needs of your children, so they can be satisfied. Because ultimately, I think most of my fathers, one thing I ask them is, what do you want for your children? And they say, well, I want them to be happy. Well, what does that mean? How do we get there? And so, I think part of getting there, I think, is understanding their needs and satisfying those needs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so even though it's 2024, we all know there's still a long way to go towards gender equity in many areas of life, including parenting and caregiving. Jorge, what kind of shifts are you seeing in how dads are approaching parenting?
Well, what I have seen in Project Fatherhood, it's a lot of fathers that come to my group with sometimes a narrow view of what a father is. To some father, it is being a provider for their children. I think Project Fatherhood has helped fathers examine that view, and I think it also has helping them expand that particular view also, so they could see their role as a much broader than just being a provider. I think many of the fathers have also come to recognize that providing for your children is more than just bringing home a paycheck. You provide nurture, you provide love and affection, healthy connection, cohesion, stability, routines. I think Project Fatherhood is a place to take a look at their expectations and beliefs when they come in. I think, and also it gives them an opportunity to reflect on those and decide if those are the ones they like, or are there other ways of looking at it, or are there other ways of dividing the responsibilities of the children that they want to work out with their partners. I think it is important to recognize that with some unique family situations that many of the fathers I serve, I think gender equity cannot always happen. And but that's if you look at equity as 50-50. I think I have families where the fathers cannot work right now because they are in temporary or permanent disability. I have families where the mother cannot work because she's pregnant or she has physical disabilities. Sometimes you have one of the caregivers that sometimes have more education than the other parent. when I work with fathers too, I try for them to view gender equity as a strong partnership. I think where they are not necessarily concerned about what the partnership looks like, or as long as I think as they are in the same page, and if they both are in the same page and they both like it, and their children remains a priority, it's fine with me. um, I guess I can also be a little bit biased because I encourage parents to figure out what their strengths are, and what each have time for. What they enjoy doing. I think it's important to try to figure those things out. What fits into their job schedules. I think it's important. I think I will hope that equity for many of the fathers that I serve looks like each of the parents agrees to do things that each of them agree to do, and they actually do it. And that's what equity looks for me, from my perspective.
Yeah, Perry, how do you think your role as a dad is similar to other dads or different to other dads, you know?
I'll say this. So my partner is the primary breadwinner for our family. She literally makes twice as much as what I do, and works in a profession that struggles with gender equity, right? And so one of the ways that I show up is in terms of being able to provide care, right? And letting her, work late hours if she needs to, or, whatever the case may be. I'm actually going to take my son to meet my mom somewhere where she has like a work engagement, and we're going to leave for the week. So my partner can get some things done without us being around and her being worried about being able to having to provide for him. And so I do think that that's one of the ways that it probably looks different than most other families.
So to close out, y'all, Perry, what advice would you give to a first-time dad?
There are a couple things here. One, be in the moment more than anything else, because it will go by faster than you can ever imagine. Two, nobody warned me about this, but sleeping newborns, like when they're fresh home from the hospital, they're absolutely terrifying. It's okay. You don't need to be alarmed. Your baby's just fine. You don't need to stay up all night and watch their every breath. Nobody literally, I think that was very practical advice that I wish someone gave me, but nobody did. Three, I think maintaining open lines of communication with your partner or co-parent, whatever that looks like for you, is absolutely critical. Four, don't be afraid to ask for help. Five, bring that baby everywhere you go. I feel like a lot of parents feel like, oh, I can't bring my kid here or there. Like, my son's with me at work oftentimes. My son goes out to eat with us, right? And like the many things that we do, right? He's there as well. And I think that it's important for folks to see that. I think it's especially important for people to see dads, right, being active with their children regardless of like what they're doing outside of the home. So yeah, those are my little pieces that I would offer to new parents, new dads.
Jorge, if a new dad is looking for a support group or a community to connect with, what's the best first step to take?
Well, I will answer it like the opposite of the previous questions about resources. I would like to think from the center out. So I think fathers, they need to ask themselves who's available right now in my life. I think it's important that in my life, so that they could either provide support or know where the support in my community is. I think if I don't know that, I think I would love to. You will have to go to. I would like to go to a community school. A place of worship. My local CBO, my library, like I said before, and I could ask people there. Where can I go for help? Where can I go and get support? Where can I get resources? I think it's important for fathers to ask those questions. I'm glad that there's a podcast like this one, where there are some fathers out there where they don't know where to start. I find it interesting that a lot of the fathers think that, they still think of libraries as where you go and check out books, and libraries are more than that. I also think of, local schools are a good place. They deal with parents all the times, and they provide resources, and they provide a lot of support for new parents. Preschools do that. I work with Head Start programs and early Head Start programs. They specialize in that. I think police stations also. I have worked with Alhambra PD in Los Angeles. I have worked with the Pico Rivera sheriff stations, and they do have programs for parents. It make professionals available. So they do have support groups for parents, so they can deal with the challenges of being a first time dad a lot of the times. So it is important that we try also to understand that that police stations they're not just for emergency or just for trouble. They do actually have resources. I will say for the parents that we need to start thinking a little bit differently in the way that how we go and get resources.
Yeah, and I think I like how you were also just saying the questions that you would like anyone can ask, like, where can I get resources? Because, like, okay, we know to ask support, but what does that even sound like? What words come out of my mouth that need to be said so that I could get the support that I need? Thank you for joining us today on our podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the National Center for Youth Law. To suggest a podcast topic or to express interest in being a podcast guest, please email health@youthlaw.org.